Picture this. Outside the cockpit window is an impenetrable milky-white shroud. No runway lights, no outlines of buildings, no horizon line. Just thick fog that, for a pilot of the last century, would mean one thing: the end of the flight. A nightmare of being unable to complete the journey. But your airliner is descending confidently, almost silently. The needles on the instrument panels are moving smoothly, and you, the passenger, are likely unaware that at this very moment, dozens of intelligent systems are seeing for you. They are piercing through this blind veil, constructing a virtual map of the world and guiding hundreds of tons of metal to the runway threshold with jeweler's precision. So, how does this work? How did pilots transform from being weather-dependent visual observers into all-weather ship captains, unafraid of even zero visibility? It all comes down to the fact that a modern airliner doesn't just have two eyes, but a whole arsenal of eyes: radar, satellite, and computer-based. Some systems, like loyal scouts, continuously feel the space ahead, creating a digital terrain map. Others, like super-sensitive hearing aids, catch the invisible whispers of ground-based beacons, decoding them into commands for the autopilot. And a third kind acts as a sort of digital magic carpet that unrolls right beneath the fuselage, showing the pilot on a screen what is hidden behind the clouds.
In this video, we won't just list technologies. We will break down how this dance between human and machine works, where an electronic assistant guides the pilot by the hand, while the pilot remains the lead director of the landing. You will learn: what are the invisible beams that guide the plane to the runway, and why the Instrument Landing System, ILS, has been considered the gold standard for blind landings for decades. How the radio altimeter works like a bat, tapping out the distance to the ground, and how it differs from GPS, which plots the trajectory from space. What the pilot sees on the Enhanced Vision System, EVS screen, a technology that projects an infrared image of the runway onto the windshield as if you're watching a sci-fi blockbuster in IMAX. And finally, where does the human fit into this flawless chain of iron and code? What skills and protocols allow the pilot to remain that final, decisive link, guaranteeing that, even in the most difficult conditions, the flight always concludes with a safe "we have arrived" at the arrival gate? Fasten your seatbelts. We are heading into the zero visibility zone to learn how airplanes see the invisible.
Imagine for a second you're walking through a completely dark maze where the walls are invisible and the only source of light is the dials of a few instruments in your hands. Now, scale that up to hundreds of tons of metal hurtling through the sky at 500 miles per hour. That's exactly what a pilot's reality is like in thick fog, when the ground, the horizon, and even the airplane's wings vanish from sight. This leads to a burning question. How does the plane not get lost and manage to find the runway with such precision under these conditions? The secret lies in the airplane's sixth sense, Instrument Flight Rules, or IFR. The moment visual contact with the ground is lost, the crew switches to this mode. It's like shifting from normal sight to echolocation, where pilots stop looking out the window and start seeing the space through data transmitted by the aircraft systems. So what are these dials that replace the pilot's eyes? The attitude indicator is the most crucial one. It shows the plane's orientation relative to the Earth, whether it's banking or pitching up. It's your only frame of reference when outside the window is a uniform, milky-white curtain. The altimeter and heading indicator work in tandem to create a 3D map of the movement. The first ensures you don't climb too high or descend too low, the second that you don't stray from your assigned corridor in the sky. Radio navigational aids, VOR, DME, ILS, are the true guides in the fog. They are placed on the ground like sonic lighthouses for ships. The airplane, picking up their signals, literally follows the beams, charting a perfect trajectory to approach the runway. The ILS, or Instrument Landing System, is the gold standard of precision. It paints two invisible lines in the sky: the glide slope, the correct descent angle, and the localizer, the runway center line. The pilot just needs to keep the instrument's needle centered, like in a video game, to glide smoothly down this electronic beam right to the runway threshold. But what if a human makes a mistake? Aviation history is filled with heroic examples that prove this system's reliability. Back in 1929, Lieutenant James Doolittle performed the first ever blind flight. His cockpit was completely covered with cloth to prevent any chance of peeking outside. And not only did he take off and fly a set course, but he also landed the plane safely, relying solely on the needles of his instruments. This experiment marked the starting point for all modern instrument navigation. Experienced pilots compare such a flight to conducting an orchestra in pitch darkness. Every movement is a precise, calculated action based on instrument readings. You can't see the musicians, but you can hear every instrument and know exactly what to do. Luck is replaced here by one of the most elegant and precise technologies in aviation history, the Instrument Landing System, ILS. In essence, it's an invisible beam that literally guides the plane down an air corridor right to the runway. Sounds like magic? Let's break down how it works. At the heart of ILS are two invisible rails created by radio signals. The localizer, your steering wheel, this ground-based transmitter sits at the far end of the runway. It creates a vertical, ethereal wall right down the runway center line. The aircraft's onboard system constantly listens to its signal. If you deviate to the left, it hears one tone, 90 Hz. If you deviate to the right, another, 150 Hz. And if both tones sound in perfect harmony, you're on the perfect course. The autopilot or the pilot simply follows a needle on the instrument to stay in this invisible groove. The glide slope, your braking path in the sky. A second transmitter, located beside the runway, is responsible for the descent angle. It draws an inclined plane in the sky at the ideal angle, usually 3 degrees. Coming down too steep, the signal will warn you. Too shallow? The same principle applies. Two signals tell the flight computer whether you're above or below the ideal trajectory. The secret is this: the plane simply rides the intersection of these two beams, like on rails. The localizer beam keeps it from drifting left or right. The glide slope beam controls the altitude. It's all simple and genius. Of course, guidance alone isn't enough. You need to know exactly when to start descending and when to prepare for landing. The system is complemented by marker beacons and distance measuring equipment, DME. Marker beacons are like mileposts on a road. As the plane flies over them, the pilot sees a light illuminate on the panel and hears a characteristic audio signal in his headset, from a series of dots and dashes to a continuous tone. Each signal says, "Attention, you are at a checkpoint." Modern systems often use DME, which shows the pilot not just that they passed a point, but the exact distance to the runway threshold in kilometers or nautical miles. It's like the sat-nav in your car.
And now the main question: how much can you trust this system? It turns out, it depends directly on the weather outside. ILS is divided into categories. The higher the category, the lower the required visibility. Category 1, Cat I, allows landing with a visibility of at least 550 meters, or 1,800 feet. The pilot must see the runway at the decision altitude, typically 200 feet or 60 meters. Category 2, Cat II. Things get more serious here. Visibility is 300 meters, 1,200 feet, and the decision is made at a height of just 100 feet, 30 meters. This is an almost blind landing. Category 3, Cat III, the pinnacle of technology. Cat 3A, landing with 200 meters, 700 feet, of visibility. The autopilot guides the plane right down to the runway. Cat 3B. Visibility as low as 50 meters, 150 feet. The plane lands blindly, and after touchdown, the pilots taxi to the gate guided by precise ground radar or lighting systems. Cat 3C. Theoretically, a landing with zero visibility. Not yet certified, as it would require fully automated taxiing. An important nuance. To land in such conditions, you need not only advanced ground equipment, but also an aircraft and a crew certified for the corresponding category. When only seconds remain until the runway, the approach lighting system, ALS, takes the stage. Even if the entire landing was conducted on instruments, at the last moment, pilots look for these lights with their eyes. Their configuration and color instantly tell them if they are on the correct glide slope.
The foundation is formed by global navigation satellite systems, GPS, GLONASS, Galileo, and Beidou. The airplane doesn't trust just one country. It's subscribed to several satellite constellations simultaneously. It's as if you had 4 different mapping services and cross-reference their data in real time to find the one true path. This integration provides phenomenal accuracy and allows landings in the most remote corners of the planet where traditional radio beacons simply don't exist. But what if the satellite signal is lost? Interference, hacker attacks. For this scenario, the plane has its own internal navigation system, the Inertial Navigation System, INS. Imagine you could determine exactly how many steps and in which direction you've moved from your starting point while blindfolded. INS works on a similar principle. Using gyroscopes and accelerometers, it tracks every movement of the airliner, its turns and accelerations. Modern aircraft have several such systems. They constantly cross-check their readings, creating an autonomous and incredibly accurate digital trail on the map.
But how do you turn all these numbers and coordinates into an understandable picture? For this, synthetic vision systems, SVS, were invented. This is genuine magic in the pilot's cockpit. On the screens in front of them, a 3D model of the terrain appears, complete with mountains, valleys, and most importantly, the runway. This image is generated based on highly accurate maps and data from all navigation systems. In thick fog, when nothing is visible outside the window, the pilot literally looks through the veil. They see the ground through this digital twin. It's not just a map, it's full immersion that eliminates spatial disorientation. All these technologies come together in larger scale concepts like performance-based navigation, PBN. PBN is like a smart route that uses the best capabilities of satellites and onboard equipment to guide the aircraft along an optimal, predictable, and safe trajectory. And the next step is 4D navigation. Here, the system manages not just position in space, but also time. The aircraft must arrive at the desired point not only with meter precision, but with second precision. This allows controllers to manage air traffic like a well-rehearsed ballet, minimizing delays and fuel consumption. To make the system even more resilient, the introduction of CPNT, Comprehensive Positioning, Navigation, and Timing, is planned by 2030. This will be a kind of armor for navigation, protecting it from failures and interference by combining all known methods of orientation, from satellites to good old radio beacons. All this digital infrastructure is managed by systems that digitize information, weather data, takeoff and landing clearances, controller instructions. Everything is transmitted as digital messages, relieving the radio spectrum and minimizing the human factor.
GPWS, Ground Proximity Warning System, the technology that has saved thousands of lives over the decades. The classic GPWS is essentially a security guard that looks straight down. Its main tool is the radio altimeter, which, like a sonar, constantly measures the exact distance to the terrain directly beneath the fuselage. The system analyzes a range of parameters, not just altitude, but also descent rate, the plane's attitude, whether the landing gear is up. And so it listens to the silence. Everything is normal. But as soon as the plane begins to descend dangerously, approaches a hillside, or loses altitude too quickly, a bone-chilling electronic voice shatters the cockpit silence.
terrain, pull up, or sink rate. This is not a recommendation. It's a final warning. The system doesn't ask, it demands immediate action. But this sentinel had its blind spot. It was brilliant, but it could only see what was happening directly underneath it. If a steep mountain slope suddenly appeared ahead on the flight path, the classic GPWS might not warn them in time. It only noticed the mountain when it was already under its feet. Engineers found an elegant solution, transforming the guard into a seer. Thus, the enhanced system was born, EGPWS, Enhanced GPWS. If GPWS is a sonar, EGPWS is a navigator with a GPS and the most detailed 3D map of the world. In its memory is a global terrain database, a digital model of the entire Earth's surface. Knowing the aircraft's exact location from GPS, its course, speed, and altitude, the system can now look kilometers ahead. It doesn't wait for the plane to start descending toward a hill. It sees that hill from miles away and highlights it on the pilot's display in yellow, and if the danger approaches, in red, accompanied by those same categorical voice commands. This is a giant leap in safety. Pilots gained not just a siren, but situational awareness. They see corridors of safe altitude on the screen and can correct their course well in advance without waiting for the alarm. EGPWS is being superseded by even more comprehensive systems, TAOs, Terrain Awareness and Warning System. This is a full-fledged security complex that not only monitors the terrain, but also controls the bank angle, warns of sudden wind shear and other treacherous factors. But here is the key point. No matter how smart these systems are, the final word always rests with the human. The electronic voice can scream, "Pull up," but it's the pilot's hands that must raise the machine. Sometimes these signals, sounding in high-tension environments, can cause stress on their own. This is why airlines increasingly use simulators, where crews learn not just to hear, but to instantly and correctly heed and react to these warnings. And what does tomorrow hold? Integration with artificial intelligence and augmented reality. Imagine pilots seeing not only a red area on a screen, but a holographic projection on the windshield, indicating a safe escape route. This is no longer science fiction, but the near future. So can you see the ground in the fog? Yes, maybe not with the human eye, but with a combination of radars, satellites, digital maps, and smart algorithms. These systems are those digital eyes that don't blink, don't get distracted, and always look forward, ensuring your smooth landing even in the densest fog.